Are you chasing perfection? Today, we're joined by someone who knows firsthand what it's like to overcome internal battles. Brittni Cosgrove is with us today. Brittni is a transformational life and business coach who helps ambitious souls break free from self imposed limitations and step into their most authentic, confident selves. In this episode, Brittni shares her powerful journey from struggling with anxiety and perfectionism to finding clarity, purpose, and freedom. If you've ever felt stuck, held back on your own thoughts, or unsure of your next steps, this conversation is for you. Brittni will reveal the secrets behind her transformation, the struggles she had to face head on, and the strategies she now teaches others to help them achieve success both in life and in business. So get comfortable and let's dive into this transformative conversation with Brittni. Brittni, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jillian. Thank you so much for having me.
I know. I'm so excited to meet you and be able to chat and learn more about your journey and what you're doing for others. So this is super exciting.
Yeah, and I am just so excited to share with your community. I am very passionate about everything that we're going to talk about, and I believe that there's probably going to be some organic things that come up naturally, and it's just beautiful to be here.
Right. That's the best part, I think, of podcasting is like, you have an intention and then like what comes up from it is always so beautiful to just let it kind of roll. So I love that. But I want to get people to get to know you first. And so can you just start by sharing a little bit about your story with us, kind of what led you to this path that you're on, and how did your own experiences shape the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Brittni. I'm a transformational life and business coach, and I would call myself a little bit of a nomad. I grew up in Northwest Washington, but I've kind of been all over. And since I was little, and I'm talking kindergarten-ish, I was a very high achiever. I struggled with perfectionism, and I dealt with very severe anxiety. And this was something that fueled a lot of my achievement chasing throughout my school years all the way through college and into my early adulthood, just always chasing more, never feeling like what I did was enough, never feeling like it was good enough, always looking at what was missing, what I could do better. And while I love that because it shows my growth mindset, it really was coming from this place of I am not good enough. I am the problem. I am a failure. Very identified with that. And it got to the point by the time I was in college, my anxiety was so severe that every single morning I would wake up and I would go throw up or would just dry heave. My body was on such overdrive. And it didn't matter what I was doing in my external life. I got A's all throughout school. I was involved in extracurriculars. I was working. I was very ambitious, very goal oriented. And I had that kind of cheerleader, bubbly personality. So I was wearing a mask this entire time. And then by the time that college came through, I was very corporate driven, very focused. Again, more, more, more. I was excited to go and climb that ladder. I was excited to see how fast I could climb, how quickly I could get there. And I ended up in my early 20s completely burnt out and
Mhm.
really struggling with my mental health while also being told constantly what a light I am, how happy I am, how cheerful I am. And it created this complete disconnect of who I actually was with who the world saw me. And
Mm.
I was just on this roller coaster of chasing. And it was when the 2020 pandemic came around, and just like the rest of the world, my life came to a complete stop. And I wasn't working anymore, and I didn't have anything to chase anymore. And that was the first time really in my entire known life since I was very, very little that I actually had a true pause. And I was able to just sit and realize, wow, there's so much spaciousness that I have not felt, that
Mm.
I didn't even know existed. And that was the year I actually started my first business. So up until this point, I had been overworking for others. And again, just coming from that background of so much ambition, I had so much to give. And I just I loved working. I've been career oriented since I was like 7 and I learned the word. But for the
Yeah.
first time in 2020, I was able to actually create something for myself. And I was able to, be my own boss and really feel into the freedom that comes with with that lifestyle and with building something that was for me. And I was also able to really tap into a different type of purpose than I had ever felt, and a different type of alignment that I had ever felt. For the first time, I was working just as much as I always had been, but I was so fulfilled and I was so excited by every single step I was learning and I was doing, and it was amazing. Now, that specific business wasn't actually the thing itself wasn't really that interesting to me long term. So within a year, I had pivoted completely. And that was
Mhm.
when I actually got into life coaching. So at the end of 2020, I was listening to a podcast. And that's why podcasting is so near and dear to my heart, because I just think it cuts through the noise and the visuals and really just is a form of expression that really can tap into what people need to hear. And I was listening to this podcast while I was wanting to grow my own business. And it was this woman that was just speaking about how you can transform things at the root of the issue instead of treating the surface level transformation, stemming at the root that it was created at. And that way it could create an actual lasting and sustainable transformation that also impacted all areas of life. And it was very future focused, helping people. So I've always been a helper. I love helping people, but I don't like the rumination in the past. A lot of people ask me if I have done any therapy or wanted to be a therapist or anything like that. And there's a time and place for it, but it was never my calling. But this was a different spin because I was looking at the future and helping people look at the future, but using the past as building blocks and as stepping stones to get where they want to go. And really treating these blocks that hold us back as the useful stepping stones that they are. Instead of thinking that blocks are in the way, they are the way. They are the way through. And it was a completely compassionate and acceptance-based approach that I had never heard and had never even realized existed. And it was something where just to my core, I was like, oh, there is something juicy here. Like this is for me. And so fast forward a little bit, I am in a training program. It's a year-long certification where I am diving into the depth of transformational life coaching, while first applying it to myself and really going through my own inner work. And this was my deepest experience of my own personal transformation. I was excavating deep childhood things and just deep experiences that I didn't even realize were holding me back. And
Mhm.
it was my first experience with really feeling emotions and really feeling into my capabilities and learning what it looks like to actually expand my belief in myself, while also healing so many different elements of my past that were contributing to my belief that I was a failure, that I was never going to get there, that I wasn't good enough, that I needed to do more and more and more to even think that I could be at the same table as some people that we're looking up at. And it was so healing and just so transformational that I don't know. I look back at that year and thinking about who I was before and after. And I just look back to my past self before that experience. And I just want to hug her because she was so
Mhm.
anxious and unhappy and just didn't know how to love life outside of just leaning into the external and, the parties and the relationships and all the things. But it was never, ever actually touching my inner world.
Yeah, well, I want to touch on so many things here. So, I want to go to like the turning point, go back a little bit because I think a lot of people think like, oh, it's the job or that's the external, right? That's causing the internal. And so if I just change my job, then I'll be better, right? And so I want to know what it looked like because you went from working in this job to now running your own business. Now, you could have had that pause and then went to your business and carried over the same patterns. So, what was the difference between having the job, having the perfectionism, struggling with anxiety, to then going in your own thing? Like, now it's your baby. Like, and, did perfectionism show up there? Did anxiety creep in, and what did you do about it then? Because I think we are our brains are pattern recognition systems, right? And so we have to break patterns. So what did it look like for you to change not just your job but to really release that anxiety, not to say that it's gone forever, right? Because we're human beings, but like to really release some of that perfectionism so that you could have that freedom.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Such a good question. So it's definitely not an overnight process. This was months and
Yeah.
months in the working. And for everyone listening, to this day, perfectionism is still something I play with and I work with, and the anxiety does come in. And so it's definitely never a one and done thing, or there's never a place to be where it's all perfect, or and there, even there,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
perfectionism, you can see it comes in. But really
Yeah.
what it came from was finding out what is the deeper desire beneath what I wanted externally. So the job is a great example. So when I look at my career, what was it that I wanted from my work, and really getting deeper, deeper, deeper to that baseline why of what it is. And a lot of people are going to find that's related to freedom, to acceptance, to love, all of these beautiful
Mhm.
things that we know we want. But then when you really realize that even the tangible things are related to these desires, you can start insourcing. And so, really feeling that internally before even having the external thing. So, with the business, if for anyone that's starting to grow their business, what does it feel like when you have the number of clients that you want, when you're making the sales that you want, when you are on the number of stages that you want to be on? Whatever that external thing is, what does it feel like? What would it feel like to have that now? What would it feel like if you were already there? And start feeling that now. People think the feeling is outside of us, but no, it's inside. Or with relationships, what would it feel like to be in that healthy, happy, collaborative relationship that you're craving? When you feel that love, what does it feel like to feel love? It's already within you. It's just learning to tap in first. And so that was really
Mhm.
where it started for me, was finding out what it was that I even wanted on those deeper, deeper levels. And then learning how to feel those when I'm wanting something outside. It's really because I'm not meeting myself inside somewhere. And if you can turn that in and find out what is that emotion or what is that feeling, and then give it to yourself, it opens up so many more ways to move forward, and with more ease and with more creativity and with more flow, because you're insourcing first. And then as you're moving forward, because as we go towards our goals, the fears and doubts will always get kicked up. No matter how much self development we do, no matter how much inner work we do, that's just part of being human. That's part of the human experience. But
Mhm.
when you can really learn to start by insourcing, then as you're moving forward and the fears come up, it's like you get to meet yourself almost. And I love inner child work for this exact reason. It's like I get to
Yeah.
meet myself with compassion and love and be like, oh, little Brittni, it's okay. Of course it's scary. Of course you want it to be perfect. Of course you don't feel like it's good enough. I love you though. I love you. You are perfect yourself. You're inherently worthy. And we're just going to put this out there. We're just going to play with this. We're just going to try it out. And it kind of gives yourself that permission to try different strategies or different methodologies or whatever it is that you're going on your way towards your goals. And it creates that very compassionate acceptance and that radical self acceptance within yourself, so that it's almost like embracing all parts. When the perfectionism comes in, when the anxiety comes in, those are not bad things. They're just parts of ourselves. And learning how to meet them with whatever feeling they're craving allows us to really holistically move forward.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, with social media, for instance, right? Like we see like the perfect family, the perfect vacation, the perfect business, we miss a lot of the flaws and the struggles behind the scenes. And I think that, people that do struggle with perfectionism, or maybe that it's somebody that is constantly chasing the future, right? When we're constantly chasing a feeling in our future, like, oh, when I have this, I'll be happy. When life looks like this, then I'll be present, but right now I need to work really hard to get there, right? We see this all the time. And then we don't see the struggle behind the scenes. We see, like, oh, now I have this dream home and look how easy it was. And I think that, that keeps people almost like chasing this perfect, right? And then, we close the doors to our homes or our business and we wonder why we struggle and we feel so lonely inside. And so talk about like what maybe the world saw, because I heard you mention like when you were out there, you were a light, you were happy, you were, this girl who had it all together. And then internally, behind the closed doors, behind, the screen, you were struggling. So talk about like what it looked like to other people and what it really was inside of you.
Yeah, the highlight reel that social media is such a thing. And it's been
Yeah.
something that since I started this journey, I did take a big step back from social media, both in my production and consumption, because I was just tired of that highlight reel. And then before that, I definitely was a contributor to it because I would post the
Mhm.
fun, colorful photos of the adventures and the smiles and the excitement and the fun,
I mean,
cutesy
we all
quotes.
do, right?
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't show
We're
the
all
realness.
guilty.
It's so true, and it's so normal, and it's not a bad
Mhm.
thing, but it does really take away from the truth and the reality of it, and it does create that lack of clarity of what it actually takes to get where you want to go. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that I personally hope to see social media bring in more elements of that truth just moving forward.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's something where, again, when you're looking at social media, and if you find yourself in that comparison, it's coming from that lack mindset. You're looking at what you don't have. You're looking at what others have that you don't have. And it's taking it at that very surface face level. And so, something that even to this day, when I'm looking at bigger business owners or people that do more adventuring, just things that are really interesting to me on social media, and that gets me really excited, I kind of turn to myself and think, what is it that I think they have that I can't have? And then so that's one side of it is what is it that I think they can have that I can't? And I'll question that. I'll question why do I think they can have it, but I can't? And really getting clear on like what are my self imposed limitations around it. But then on the flip side, it's also asking, can I know without a shadow of a doubt that that's their truth? Can I know without a shadow of a doubt that they're not going through the exact same struggles or their own struggles? And that's also a
Mhm.
no. Because when we slow it down on the other side, we know, and we can see it with our communities, with our colleagues, with friends. We know everyone is going through their own struggles. And sometimes we just have to slow it down and remind ourselves of that and take away the hierarchy of it. It's not, oh, my struggles are better or worse than theirs. Their struggles are easier because of X, Y, and
Right.
Z. But it's just a fact across the board. Everyone has their own mountains to climb. And when we can see that and acknowledge that and accept it, and then again, just turning it back to like, what do I want? What am I seeing that's inspiring me? And trying to just turn the narrative, rewrite that story. Then it can help us to both be called forward because maybe they are working longer hours, or maybe they are physically doing more, or maybe they do have more privileges in place, whatever it is. But maybe we can see how are what they're doing, how can that inspire us to keep going in our own path? But I
Mhm.
also want to bring in the element of alignment because how someone else does their life, business, family, etc., doesn't mean that that's how anyone else should do it because that's what's right for them. Doesn't mean that that's right for me or you or for anyone listening. And that's something really important too, is to always come back to your truth and your alignment about what is actually your goal, what you want, why you want it, and how you want it.
Yeah, I think that is super important too, because especially like when comparing like your goals to somebody else's goals or somebody's family compared to your family, or, you know, it's a, they say comparison is the thief of joy. And it is really true because everybody's life looks a little bit different. And, that person's values might not be the same as yours either. I also wanted to ask you, during this moment in your life, COVID was, to that 2020 year, it was a lonely year for many people. And, the struggles from that are still alive today. And I want to know, was there people in your life that showed up? because I think that it's really important to have a community, a friend. It doesn't have to be the whole world. It doesn't have to be, your whole social media, all your followers, but having those people that are close enough to you that you can share those struggles with, that you can reveal what's really going on inside of you, I think is really important. So was there people in your life that were there with you during that time? Or what did it look like to go through that healing journey?
I really leaned on my sisters. So I have two younger sisters
Mm,
and we're super tight. And
that's
they
great.
are the ones that have seen where I've come from. They saw that transformation firsthand. And they were always a very safe and open space for me to kind of lean into that experience of, yeah, what I'm going through, the struggles I'm having, and then vice versa, just normalizing it, knowing that they're going through it as well. I will say during the healing process, I really did take a step back from a lot of people and I kind of went into more
Mhm,
hermit mode from it. Part of that is my own coping mechanisms, my attachment styles, and whatnot. But it was also it was just so big and so intense and so meaningful. But I also didn't have the words and energy to kind of share that with too many people. And so, really, I just kept it that tiny little circle of my sisters. I was in a relationship at the time, so they saw that as well. But really, it was just keeping it small. And that also created a lot of safety because I knew that with my sisters, there is nothing I could say or do that would change our bond. And so, really being able
mhm,
to share all parts of me of what I was experiencing and learning and exploring within myself. Because so when I was growing up and a lot of my young adult life, I didn't even know how to access emotions. I didn't know how to feel.
yeah,
I just felt very, very numb inside. And that numbness was that safety, that safety layer there to just protect against the chaos that I thought feelings were. And so as I'm going through this healing journey, I'm starting to learn how to feel and I'm feeling, feelings and the experiences of the past, they don't go away. They just get stored until they finally come up to be met.
mhm.
And so it was a lot. It was a lot of intense feelings and emotions and just sensations that just were coming to the surface to be let out, just kind of like a steaming kettle. It was just ready for the steam to go. But having that safe space to where I could just, whether it was crying or the anger or just really being able to unarticulate articulating things that I had never known how to explain before. So that was really helpful and it was really good to have my sisters just really be there for that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is. It's so important to have that safety zone. When you're ready to reveal what you've discovered about yourself or the things that you're trying to start, whether, making a career shift, I think is huge in it's like an identity crisis, right? Like we put so much of our life into our work, like you think about how many hours, especially if you're working a full-time job, how many hours you're actually at work as opposed to at home, and like how much dedication that job takes, it becomes part of your identity. And so I think making that shift and actually removing yourself from the job, I think is actually important, right? I think it's huge because you let go of yourself from identifying yourself from with the job to learning how to identify yourself as just you, you know? And so I think that like was actually a gift to you. And I think, if there is other people listening that maybe are going through a breakup or maybe they're going through a job loss or they lost somebody they love, like maybe this is a time for you to really take that moment for yourself and dive in, do the work, ask yourself the questions. You kind of mentioned also unraveling your sense of self-worth from what you do. So what were some big challenges in that process and how did you start to really cultivate a sense of self-worth and that wasn't tied to your external achievements or your job?
Yeah, and that was a huge journey because coming
Mhm.
out of the hustle culture that I was very bought
Yeah.
into before 2020, I really pivoted. And during the first couple of years of this work, it was a lot of just internal focus, and my external world slowed down so much. And
Mhm.
again, I stepped back from a lot of different communities. I moved, I left relationships. I really just turned inward. And
Mm.
that was when I was really able to, it was kind of a mix, like you were bringing up the identity portion. And that's so important
Mm-hmm.
because my
Yeah.
identity was very, very attached to what I could achieve. But
Yep.
then, even further within that, I was able to, in my work, find that I was actually deep down subconsciously identified with I am a failure. And it was something from
Mm.
just one of those childhood memories that just created a misunderstanding. And so as I was diving into these different identities and starting to shift them apart, and even with anxiety, I say, I am anxious. Well, no, I am so many other things, and I have anxiety, but I am not my anxiety. And so it's really breaking apart all these different things that I had connected together. And it was just one after the other, and a lot of just questioning. Like I ask questions all the time. Is it true? Is it true I'm a failure?
Mm-hmm.
What is my
Yeah.
definition of a failure? What is my definition of success? Just really, the more the ego and the human mind likes the vagueness of things. So the more we ask
Yeah.
questions and the more we ask it to get specific, the less power it holds. So that was really how I started breaking down any identifications I had outside of just me and my essence and my soul and just all of those elements. And then the rebuilding of it was really focused on creating that self-worth that was not attached to anything, like you said. And a lot of that stemmed from really creating a genuine sense of self-love. And for me, that started with the inner child work. So I didn't know how to have self-love for who I was at the time, but I could look back to those little early memories of myself, and I could see little Brittni with so much love and so much compassion. And so that was how it started for me, was I could see the blocks that were holding me back, the perfectionism, the anxiety, the fear of failure, the different components like that. I could see
Mm-hmm.
them with compassion for how they were trying to help me, how they wanted me to be successful, how they wanted me to be great in all of this. And by holding them with that love and compassion, I was able to start just incorporating that more and integrating it into my whole being. And then just watering that garden. It was something that took a long time of slowly building up more and more. And it became like a muscle, so that when I would get activated or triggered by something, instead of, I always allow the human experience, but I end that human experience with coming back to myself with love and compassion for my experience. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that includes, if the anger or the unresolved feelings are not gone, that's not a bad thing. But it's like bring them into that little love mixture and
Yeah.
trying to find that compassion for the whole human experience was really how I started growing it. And by doing this, it never really mattered what I was doing on the outside. So eventually I came out of my hermit mode and I kind of got back into my groove of doing and being and going bigger. But it was never with that chase anymore. Now it was more like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, I myself am infinite. I am expansive. So what can I do with this? What do I want to do with this? And it creates, there's still sprints and there's still the marathons and there's still a lot of work that goes into going for it. But it comes from that genuine place of like, I love me and I'm just going to go for it. And I can hold myself through any experiences that come up. It's not always going to be a highlight reel. We know that there are the ups and downs. And for as much joy and highs as we want to feel, we have to be willing to experience the equal side on the low spectrum. Life is that spectrum. And so as I kept leaning into it and just challenged myself, how much can I hold? Can I hold more? And I just really kept tapping into my own infinite capacity. And through that, it just never came back to being about what I'm doing on the outside or when it does, because I guess I can't say it never does, but when the human voices come in of, oh, I should be doing more, I should be doing it better, I can see it quicker and I can just bring
Mm-hmm.
it back to that love and compassion for it and start rewiring it.
Yeah, I think compassion is probably one of the biggest ingredients to really healing and freedom. I know that that was huge in my own life, like looking back at mistakes I had made or choices I made early on and how they've affected me or whatever. And now I got to make up for it. And so that I still matter, I'm still loved, right? And just having compassion for the girl that I was at this period of life or that period of life, because like we're not supposed to be the same person we were at 14. That'd be really scary, like so
Goodness, we're
like we're
not.
not supposed to, right? And like, but we can still have compassion for her and what she was going through with the tools she had and what she knew at the time. Like we can have compassion for that version of us. And I think having that compassion for myself, what it also did is it made me see other people in a different light. It made me have compassion then for other people and the mistakes that they made in my life, which then opened myself up for like this beautiful forgiveness, right? In all areas of my life. I was no longer holding on to the things this person did or what I did. It was like I could have compassion for the whole situation, take the lessons that I've learned, and then, just like you're saying, future focus, right? Like what did I learn, and how can I apply that to my future and grow from that. And so I really do, I love compassion. I think it's just, if I could give somebody anything, it would just be compassion, because I really think it's huge.
Yeah,
It's
I
played
could
such a
not agree
huge part.
more.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's really been something that's transformed my relationships because exactly what you
Mm.
said, the
Yes.
more
Mm-hmm.
compassion and love I have for myself, the more I
Yep.
hold that for others. And I do
Yeah.
want to be clear, compassion does not equal condoning. You can be
No.
compassionate and still hold your boundaries and still know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. What's okay, what's not okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. What are some of the most powerful strategies you found for shifting like a negative thought pattern, or, like slipping into that perfectionism, to create lasting change? Like what are some shifts, some strategies you found?
I have two that are my absolute favorites. So the first is I do a lot of subconscious rewiring with both myself and anyone I work with because a lot of
Mhm.
people don't realize, but the majority of how we function comes from our subconscious, and the majority of the subconscious is developed in childhood. So a lot of us adults are out here operating with old operating systems that are ready for an upgrade. And so a
Totally.
lot of that comes with just bringing awareness to the different patterns. So starting by, and again, I'm just going to bring it back to the questioning. Always start with questioning. So if you know what your pattern is, or if you know what the block is, start by asking, like first get really clear with it. How does that block show up? What is the narrative around it? What are the stories around it? How do you operate when you believe it versus when you don't believe it? And then from there, so you get really clear with what the pattern is, and then asking, what is the deeper desire for this block? How is it trying to help me? How is it trying to support me? What does it want from me? And then you're going to get an answer that's going to usually send back to either protection and safety. It's going to want to protect you from rejection, or want to make sure you're accepted, or want to keep you from failing. So it's going to be either in protection, or it's going to be rooted in worth. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. Those are generally the two core human universal pain points that are at the base of
Mhm.
it. And then when you can see what that deeper desire is, you look at your approach and say, okay, how can I upgrade my strategy so that I am still taking action, I'm still moving forward, but I'm making sure I'm meeting this need for fill in the blank, the safety, the love, the protection,
Mhm.
whatever it is. How can I move forward, but still meet that part that is in fear? And even if it's as simple as just before you send the message, before you submit your resume, before you reach out to the client, whatever that scary step is, take a moment, just hand over heart even, and just breathe into your body and just send love to that part that's afraid. Just say, I see you. I'm here for you. I've got you. I know it's scary, but we're going to do this together. We've got this. I've got you. It's like the fear still gets to be in the car, but we're just moving it out of the driver's seat, right? So
Mhm.
that's more of when you can dive into your subconscious and start with the questioning. And then on the other side, if you just have the emotion and there's just a sensation, just feel it. And I know that sounds easier said than done, but people don't realize that an emotion only takes about 90 seconds to be felt before it can pass on. And if it takes longer than 90 seconds, it's because we're looping in a story about it. We're recreating the narrative that's recreating the feeling over and over. So if you can step out of the mind, and if you can just kind of tap into the body and tap into that sensation, that feeling, and just feel it for 90 seconds, it'll naturally move on. And sometimes if that can feel really hard, it's like, okay, what does this feeling want to do? Does it want to curl up and get really small? Does it want to punch a pillow? Does it want to scream into a
Mhm.
pillow? Like, let it be expressed. Like, let that feeling be truly felt without judgment, without shame, without a story about it. Just feel it. Allow the human experience. And so those are two different ways for people that are more in the mind and in their head. Start by just questioning everything, questioning the thoughts that are creating the feelings, questioning your thoughts about how others are doing it, questioning why the different experiences are coming through. And then for
Yeah.
people that really want to take it even deeper or want to bypass the mind, just tap into the body, feel the feeling.
Yeah. So tell me what you would do in a situation where, let's say you're at work or you're at the grocery store with your kids, like whichever one, right? And you're feeling this emotion and you're like on fire. Okay. You're angry, you're frustrated, but you're in a place where like feeling that feeling, like what does it look like to feel that feeling? Because I want to be clear, you know, um, between a response and a reaction and what that actually looks like from an outside perspective when we can't just go scream into a pillow because we don't have a pillow. What's
Yeah.
something that you do?
So a few different things are to just kind of close your eyes for a few seconds and take some deep breaths. And I love the box breath. It's one of my favorites. So breathe in for 4, hold it at the top for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold it at the bottom for 4, and do a couple of rounds of that. And so maybe if you're in the grocery store or something, like just walk up and down the aisle while your kids are picking out the different snacks they want or something like that. Or if you can go into the bathroom at work and just take a few moments to breathe. If
Mm,
that's not accessible, or if you're even more activated, then I like to do, like, I don't even know, there's probably a name for it, but it's like find 5 things and name 5 things that you can see, and then name 4 things that you can hear, and name 3 things that you can touch, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So it's kind of bringing you into the body. This is a great way for regulating your nervous system and just kind of slowing it down and just bringing you back to the present moment. And again, I think that utilizing the breath and slowing
hmm
down the experience can create enough space, enough spaciousness to kind of navigate through the real world
hmm
until when you're ready and available to come back to the experience that was the trigger or the activation, to give yourself a better closure with it. But when you're just looking for ways to really, manage it in the real world, just find a few moments. It doesn't have to be long. We're not talking minutes, literally just a few seconds of breathing deeper, holding your breath at the top and bottom to just slow everything down.
Yeah. I know. I think that people forget about how important breath work really is. I think it's like, it's something so simple that like we don't see enough people do. Like just take a second to pause and take some deep breaths, and you'll notice how everything can change. Something that I also do is just like I wake up before my kids every single day on purpose because I need to do my breath work before I'm prepping. It's like not even just in the moment, but like prep yourself with the breath work. Like if you're going to have like chaos in the morning or you get to work and you have like a meeting that you might be anxious about, like do the breath work on your way there in the car. I think that there's power. There's so much power, as you know, Brittni, and I know in my practice as well. Like breathing is, I mean, when people have children, like what do we do? Like they learn Lamaze breathing, like to get through the most painful thing that there is in life, like this stuff works. So I love what you're saying. I love that you bring up breath work. I think it's so powerful. So tell me about like what you have coming up, what you're doing, and how people can connect with you as well.
Yeah. So, coming up, I've got a workshop in September. I would love to invite all the listeners to it. It's called Radiant Living, and I can give you the information for it for the show notes. Anyone that's
Yeah, that'd be
listening will
great.
be my guest, so I'll give you a code as well for your listeners too. And then
Awesome.
coming up in October, we are going to be, or me, myself, and I will be launching my first group program, which is all going to be about really tapping into your essence and living life on your terms, saying a screw you to the rules and society and what everyone says you should be doing. We're taking should out of the vocabulary, and it's going to be really leaning into what is the most powerful, magnetic being that you are, and how can that be your new norm? So that as you're going through life and as you're going through the highs and lows, you have got you. You know how to handle yourself, how to handle life. You are that pillar in a storm. And so, if anyone is interested in that, you can reach out to me on Instagram or send me an email. My Instagram is at Brittni.Cosgrove. And then you can send me an email at hello@BrittniCosgrove.com. And I would love to chat.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, sharing your insights with us and your story. I think it's always nice when not people give us just the tools, but we know where they're coming from and we can relate to that person as well. So thanks for, getting vulnerable, sharing your secrets with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing.
Yeah, of course. To our listeners, if you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit from Brittni's wisdom. Until next time, keep exploring your own secrets, struggles, and strategies. And remember, growth happens when we step into our authentic selves. Hey there, it's Jillian from Life Without Secrets. Ever feel like you and your partner aren't quite on the same page? Well, you're not alone. And that's exactly why I created our latest issue of Truthful magazine. It's packed with insights and stories about bridging that gap and finding a deeper connection. We're diving into real conversations about needs, feelings, and how honest dialogue can rekindle that closeness that you've been missing. Why not explore this together? Go grab your free copy right now at lifewithoutsecrets.com and turn those pages into shared moments. Can't wait for you to dive in and share your thoughts with me.